This is a tutorial on how to create this gorgeous cartoon effect milkshake embroidery design. You'll see you've got two sizes to stitch. I'm going to go in and use the bigger one here. So we're just going to cut around our stencil and get ready to place it on our garment. Now, to make sure that your stick and stitch is nice and central, you can use a ruler either side or count the rows either side of your stick and stitch to find the perfect center point. And once you've done this, you can just peel the stick and stitch off the backing paper and make sure that you adhere it very firmly to your garment. You don't want any lifting in any corners. The first section we're going to start with is the glass of the milkshake. So for me, I'm going to do this in a blue yarn. You can choose whichever color you have added to your DIY kit. So I've just gone ahead here and threaded onto my needle approximately a meter of the blue yarn. And we're just going to go in with a satin stitch here. So we're just going to bring our needle into that gap. So you've got your stencil lines to keep you nice and straight. And these are just little straight stitches, but the satin stitch works together to cover this whole area. So you'll see here, we're just going to pop our needle down into a tiny little straight stitch. And we're just going to follow this all the way around on the inside of this bottom section of the glass. And we're just going to go all the way around until we get to this point here. So now that we're here, we're just going to anchor down with a stitch. So we're just going to pull that through. And then when we flip our garment over, you'll see we've got two tails. Now these two tails ideally need to be together so we can tie them off together. So to get them back side by side, we just need to thread our needle through our work. And once these two little tails are together, we can then tie them off with a triple knot and snip away any excess ends. The next section we're going to do is this bottom section of the glass. So again, we're going to use the same style of stitch, so a nice little straight stitch. Now I'm not sure why when I videoed this I started here, but I did. So anyway, just bear with me. Sometimes I do random things like that. And we're just going to go with our straight stitch all the way across the section here, but you'll see there's a tiny little bit there to the left. So I'm going to have to bring my needle back, but I'll show you how I do that. So once I've completed this section, I'm just going to flip my garment over because I've made extra work for myself here. And we're just going to thread our needle back through our work, and then I can complete that little section there to the left, which really I probably should have started there. Look, it doesn't really matter. It's you start wherever you feel comfortable. And once I've filled in this section, I'll need to then weave my needle back again across the right so that those two tails are together and I can tie them off. Next, I've threaded on approximately 1.5 meters of the blue yarn again, and we're going to go with the outside of this glass. Now, I love the chain stitch for this, and you can use a chain stitch or you can use a back stitch, entirely up to you. Now for the chain stitch, we're just going to move our yarn to the left. Our needle goes back down through the hole we just came up from. We're coming up about 0.5 centimeter in space, and providing this yarn is behind our needle, we can just go ahead and pull through. So there's a couple of methods with using the chain stitch. I like to use both of these methods where I pull the yarn to the left like this, and you can then pull your needle through, and that's creating a lovely chain effect, and we can just continue like this all the way around our outside of our glass. And we'll keep going until we get to this section here, and then we're just going to anchor that down with a stitch. Now when we turn our garment over, you'll see our two tails, they're quite far from each other. Now if you've got enough yarn on your needle and have the time, you can do a whipped back stitch all the way through your work so that those tails are together, or you can just do what I'm doing here and do a few whipped back stitches into your work. Now you can just cut this off without a knot, it really will not unravel. However, I like to be a little bit pedantic and just pop a little knot in there, and we can snip that away. And we're just going to repeat the same process with the other side. Next, we've got this section here on the top of the glass, and again we're going to go in and do our little satin stitch there. So I've left a little tail underneath, I've threaded on about 1 meter of yarn again, and we're just going to go in with our satin stitch and fill in this section all the way across. And once we get to the end, we can just anchor that down with a stitch. And when we flip our garment over, you'll see that we've got our two tails, and we've got enough yarn threaded onto our needle to do a whip stitch all the way to meet these two tails again. So we're just going to go ahead and thread through our work. Now our two tails are together, we'll just snip away, tie them off in a triple knot, and we're good to continue. Next I'm going to stitch the little love heart inside the milkshake. So I've threaded on about 1 meter of my pink yarn, and for this one I'm going to just pull my needle from my starting point, leaving a small tail, and I'm just going to do a back stitch all the way around the outside first. So this spacing is around 1/2 centimeter in size, and try and keep it pretty much the same if you can. You do have a fabric marker inside your DIY kit. You could always do a little markings around if you want to make it a little bit easier for you. And we're just going to continue like this all the way around the love heart. Now we should have enough yarn still on our needle to fill the center of this heart, so we're just going to go in with this now and do a satin stitch to fill in this space. And once the love heart is nicely filled with a satin stitch, we can then flip our garment over, and you'll see we've got 2 tails there which we can nicely tie off to together. So next we're going to look at the cream on the top of the milkshake. Now I've chosen to do this in white. You can choose whichever color you like. You're going to put on a generous amount of yarn, probably about 1 to 2 meters. And to start with, we're just going to go around the edge of our cream with the back stitch, which we've just done with our love heart. It's a nice simple stitch. So we're going to go all the way around the outside first. Now don't worry too much about the detail that's inside this. Obviously this is going to get covered anyway, and we're going to just go around the edge here, so don't worry too much about what's inside. We will come back to that shortly. Now that we've gone around the edging, we're just going to go a little bit rogue in the middle here, and we're just going to do lots of long and short stitches. So put on a generous amount of yarn onto your needle, probably about 2 meters or maybe 1.5. And we're just going to do lots of satin stitches, lots of long and short stitches, and just fill in this space. So don't worry too much about it being perfect. We're going to cover this with a few little bits of confetti. And to be honest, I personally like it looking a little bit imperfect because I think it gives that more of a textured look. So you'll see here, I'm just going to go in and fill in some little spaces here, and whenever I see a little gap, I'm just going to pop a little straight stitch in there. And continuing on like this, we're just going to fill this whole section in white. Once we get that nice and filled, we're just going to snip away the excess and tie off in a triple knot. So the next section I'm going to look at is the straw. Now I've put on about 1 meter of the red yarn. I'm going to do red, white all the way up, alternating those colors. So you should have enough yarn on your needle to do this whole straw in the red section. So we're just going to pull our needle up, leaving a small tail underneath, and we're just going to go in with a satin stitch and complete all of these sections here. And now that that's filled, we're just going to take our needle and thread it back through our work so that those two tails are now together to tie off to. And of course, once we finish this, we're just going to repeat the same process with the white. So now we're going to have a look at filling in some confetti. Now this is a very simple stitch. You can put whichever colours you like. I would suggest maybe doing 3 pieces of confetti per colour. I've chosen 3 colours here. Now it's just a very simple straight stitch, a very small little straight stitch, and you can place them wherever you like. Put about 1/2 metre of the yarn on your needle, and when you've finished, you're just going to bring those two tails together and tie them together in a triple knot. And you can repeat this process with other colours and putting in as many as you like. I've only chosen 3 for mine. And we're just going to snip away the excess and we're all done. Next, we're going to take a look at the Milkshake's face. So we just threaded on about 1/2 metre of the black yarn, and we're just going to go in with a very simple back stitch here, but make sure your stitches are nice and small so that you can keep that detail. So we're just going to go in and do the back stitch, and then once we have finished, we can tie off with the triple knot as we have been doing, and repeat this process for the other eye and for the mouth as well. Now for our little blush cheeks, we're just going to go in with a satin stitch. You only need about 1/4 metre for this, and we're probably going to put about 5 straight stitches or satin stitches into this section here. And when we're done, of course, we're just going to tie off as we have been doing before and snip away any excess ends. Now inside the Milkshake design there is some confetti drawn. Now you can use this if you like. Personally I decided to leave it off. I just wanted the sprinkles on top of the cream section, but I did leave it in there in case you wanted to add this. Now your project is pretty much done, or if you are loving the sort of cartoon look, which I am fully obsessed with at the moment, then all you're going to do is add some black yarn onto your needle, and you're going to do a back stitch around every single outline of your piece. And as you do this, you'll notice it sort of creates a cartoon effect. So this is entirely up to you if you like this look. I personally love it, so I'm going to go ahead and add this to my garment now, but you don't have to do this. You can of course remove your soggy stick and stitch the step before this and leave it as it is. The key here to make that cartoon effect is to not miss any outline and make sure that you pop a black outline around every single section. And once you fill in all of these sections, you'll see it starting to come together and look very cartoony. It is so cute. I am fully obsessed with this look. Now to remove your stick and stitch, you're just going to pop your garment into a bowl of lukewarm water. Now you may need to help it along a little bit by giving it a bit of a rub to remove, or you can run it under the tap, or you can actually pop it in the washing machine. Just make sure you turn your garment inside out, pop it on a cold wash on a very delicate setting. Once it's finished, you can just flat lay to dry and enjoy. This is such a cute stitch. I am fully obsessed. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy stitching, guys.